Hey guys, it's our last chapter, chapter 11. Chapter 11, Pippi celebrates her birthday. One day, Tommy and Annika found a letter in their mailboxes. It was addressed to Timmy and Annika, and when they opened it, they found a card which read, Timmy and Annika are invited to Pippi's tomorrow to her birthday party. The address, wherever you'd like. Tommy and Annika were so happy they began to skip and dance. They understood perfectly well what the print on the card, although the spelling was a little unusual. Pippi had a great deal of trouble writing it. To be sure, she had not recognized the letter I in school the day she was there, but all the same, she could write a little. When she was sailing the ocean, one of the sailors on her father's ship used to take her on deck in the evening, now and then, and try to teach her to write. Unfortunately, Pippi was not a very patient pupil. All of a sudden, she would say, "No, Fridolfe." That was his name. "No, Fridolf, bother all this learning. I can't study anymore because I could just climb the mast to see what kind of weather we're going to have tomorrow." So it was no wonder the writing didn't go so well. One whole night she sat struggling with the invitation, and at dawn, just as the stars were paling in the sky over Villa Villacanula, she tiptoed over to Tommy and Annika's house and dropped the letter in their mailbox. As soon as Tommy and Annika came home from school, they began to get all dressed up for the party. Annika asked her mother to curl her hair, and her mother did, and tied it with a big pink satin bow. Tommy combed his hair with water so that it would lie nice and smooth. He certainly didn't want any curls. Then Annika wanted to put her very best dress on, but her mother taught her she'd better not for she was seldom neat and clean when she got home from Pippi's. So Annika had to be satisfied with her next best dress. Tommy didn't care what suit he wore as long as it looked nice. Of course, they had bought a present for Pippi. They had taken the money out of their own piggy banks, and on their way home from school had run into the toy shop on Main Street and bought a very beautiful, what they had thought was a secret for the time being. There it lay, wrapped in green paper and tied a great deal of string. And when they were ready, Tommy took the package off, and off they went, followed by their mother's warning to take good care of their clothes. Annika was to carry the package part of the way, and they were both to hold it when they handed it to Pippi. That they had agreed upon. It was already November, and the dusk was early. When Tommy and Annika went in through the gate of Villa Villacanula, they had held each other's hand tightly because it was quite dark in Pippi's garden, and the wind slightly mournful through the bare old trees. "Seems like fall," said Tommy, with such a pleasantry to see the lighted windows in Villa Villacanula, to know that they were going to a birthday party. Ordinarily, Tommy and Annika rushed in through the kitchen door, but this time they went through the front door. The horse was not on the porch. Tommy gave a lively knock on the door. From inside came a low voice. "Who comes in the dark night on the road to my house? Is it a ghost or just a poor little mouse?" "No, no, Pippi, it's us," shrieked Annika. "Open the door." Pippi opened the door. "Oh, Pippi, what did you say about a ghost? I was so scared." And Annika completely forgot to congratulate Pippi. Pippi laughed heartily and opened the door to the kitchen. How good it was to come in where it was light and warm. The birthday party was in the kitchen because it was the most pleasantest room in the house. There were only two other rooms on the first floor, the parlor, in which there was only one piece of furniture, and Pippi's room. The kitchen was large and roomy, and Pippi had scrubbed it until it shone. She had put rugs on the floor and a large new cloth on the table. She embroidered the clothes herself with flowers that certainly looked almost remarkable, but Pippi declared that such flowers grew in the farthest India, so of course that made them all right. The curtains were drawn and the fire burned merrily. On the wood box sat Mr. Nilsson, banging pot lids together, and in the corner stood the horse, for he too had been invited to the party. Now at least Tommy and Annika remembered that they were supposed to congratulate Pippi. Tommy bowed and Annika curtsied, and then they handed Pippi the green package that said, may we congratulate you and wish you a happy birthday." Pippi thanked them eagerly and tore open the package, and there was a music box. Pippi was wild with delight. She patted Tommy, and she patted Annika, and she patted the music box, and she patted the wrapping paper. She wound up the music box, and with much plinking and plonking, out came a melody that was probably supposed to be an Ank du Care Augustine. Pippi wound and seemed to forget everything else. But suddenly, she remembered something. "Oh my goodness, you must have your birthday presents too," she said. "But it isn't our birthday," said Tommy and Annika. Pippi stared at them in amazement. "No, but it's my birthday, isn't it? So I can give you birthday presents too, can't I? Or does it say in your school book such things that can't be done? Is it something to do with the planification? That is impossible." "Oh, of course it's possible," said Tommy. It just isn't customary, but for my part, I'd be very glad to open a present." "Me too," said Annika. Pippi ran into the parlor and brought back 2 packages from the chest. When Tommy opened his, he found a little ivory flute, and in Annika's package was a lovely brooch shaped like a butterfly. The wings of the butterfly were set with blue and red and green stones. They all had their birthday presents, and it was time to sit down at the table, where there were all sorts of cakes and buns. The cakes were rather peculiar in shape, but Pippi declared they were just the kind of cakes they had in China. Pippi served hot chocolate with whipped cream, and the children were just about to begin their feast when Tommy said, "When Mama and Papa have a party, the gentlemen always get the cards telling them what the ladies to take in to dinner. I think we ought to have cards too." "Okay," said Pippi, although it would be kind of hard for us because I'm the only gentleman here," added Tommy doubtfully. "Fiddlesticks," said Pippi. "Do you think Mr. Nilsson is a lady?" "Maybe." "Oh, of course not. I forgot Mr. Nilsson," said Tommy. But he sat down on the wood box and wrote on the card, "Mr. Settergreen will have the pleasure of taking Miss Longstocking in to dinner." "Mr. Settergreen, that's me," as he said with satisfaction, and showed Pippi the card. Then he wrote on the next card, "Mr. Nilsson will have the pleasure of taking Mrs. Settergreen in to dinner." "Okay, but the horse must have a card too," said Pippi decidingly, "even if he can't sit at the table." So Tommy, at Pippi's dictation, wrote, "The horse will have the pleasure of remaining in the corner where he will be served cakes and sugar." Pippi held the card under the horse's nose and read, "Read this and see what you think of it." As the horse had no objection to make, Tommy offered Pippi his arm, and they walked to the table. Mr. Nilsson showed no intention of offering his arm to Annika, so she took a firm hold of him and lifted him up to the table. But he didn't want to sit on the chair. He insisted on sitting right on the table. Nor did he want any chocolates with whipped cream. But Pippi poured water in his cup. He took it in both his hands and drank. Tommy, Annika, and Pippi ate, and Annika said if these cakes were kind they had in China, she insisted to move to China when she grew up. When Mr. Nilsson had emptied his cup, he turned it upside down and put it on his head. When Pippi saw that, she did the same, but as she had not drunk quite all her hot chocolate, the steam ran down her forehead. A little stream ran down her forehead and over her nose. She caught it with her tongue and lapped it all up. "Waste not, want not," she said. Tommy and Annika licked their cups clean before they put theirs on their head. When everybody had enough and the horse had his share, Pippi took hold of all 4 corners of the tablecloth and lifted it so that the plates and cups tumbled over onto each other, as if they were a sack. Then she stuffed the whole bundle in a wood box. "I always like to tidy up a little as soon as I have eaten," she said. Then it was time for games. Pippi suggested that they had played a game called Don't Touch the Floor. It was very simple. The only thing they had to do was walk all over the kitchen without stepping on the floor. Pippi skipped around with a twinkle in her eye, and even for Tommy and Annika it was quite easy. They had began on the drain board, and they stretched their legs enough it was possible to step back onto the stove. From the stove to the wood box, and from the wood box to the shelf, and down onto the table, and from across the 2 chairs on the cupboard. And here's the picture. Between the corners of the cupboard and the drain board was the distance of several feet, but luckily there stood the horse. And if you climbed up on him at the tail and end and slid off at the head, making quite a quick turn at exactly the right moment, you landed exactly on the drain board. When they had played this game for a while, and Annika's dress was no longer her next best dress, but her next best one, and Tommy had become black as the chimney swept, then they decided to think of something else. "Suppose we go in the attic and visit a ghost," suggested Pippi. Annika gasped. Are there really ghosts in the attic?" she asked. "Are there ghosts?" "Millions," said Pippi. "It's just swarming with all sorts of ghosts and spirits. You trip over them whenever you walk. Shall we go up?" "Oh, Pippi," said Annika, and looked tongue-tied. She looked reproachfully at her. "Mama says there aren't any such things as ghosts and goblins," said Tommy boldly. "And, well, she might," said Pippi, "because there aren't anywhere else. All the ghosts in the world are in my attic. It doesn't pay to try and make them move, but they aren't dangerous. They just pinch you in the arms so that way you get black and blue, and they howl, and they play 9 pins with their heads." Do they really play 9 pins with their heads?" "Sure, that's just what they do," said Pippi. "Come on, let's go up and talk to them. I'm good at playing 9 pins." Tommy didn't want to show that he was frightened, but in a way he really did want to see the ghost. That would be something to tell the boys at school. Besides, he consoled himself with the thought that the ghost probably wouldn't dare to hurt Pippi. He decided to go along. Poor Annika didn't want to go under any circumstances, but then she happened to think that a little tiny ghost might sneak downstairs while she was sitting alone in the kitchen. That decided that matter. Better to be with Pippi and Tommy among thousands of ghosts than alone in a kitchen with even the tiniest little ghost. Pippi went first. She opened the door to the attic stairs. It was pitch black there. Tommy took a firm grip on Pippi and Annika an even firmer grip on Tommy, so they went up. The stairs creaked and squeaked with every step. Tommy began to wonder if it would have been better to stay in the kitchen, and Annika didn't need to wonder. She was sure of it. At last, they came to the top stairs and stood in the attic. Excuse me. It was pitch dark there, too, except where a little moonbeam shone on the floor. There were sighs and mysterious noises in every corner when the wind blew through the cracks. "Hi, all you ghosts," shrieked Pippi. But if there's any ghost there, he certainly didn't answer. "Well, I might have known," said Pippi. "They've gone to a council meeting of the Ghosts and Goblins Society." Annika sighed with relief and hoped that the meeting would last a long time. But just then, an awful sound came from one of the corners of the attic. "Woo!" it said, and a moment later Tommy saw something come rushing towards him in the dimness. He felt a brush on his forearm and saw something disappear through the little window that stood there. He shrieked to high heavens, "A ghost! A ghost!" And Annika shrieked with him. "That poor thing will be late for his meeting," said Pippi. "If it was a ghost, and not an owl, for that matter. There aren't any ghosts," she continued after a while. "If anybody insists that they're a ghost, I'll tweak him in the nose." "Yes, but you said so yourself," said Annika. Is that so, did I?" said Pippi. "Well then, I'll certainly tweak my own nose." And she took a firm grip of her nose and tweaked it. After that, Tommy and Annika felt a little calmer. In fact, they were now so courageous that they ventured to go up to the window and look out to the garden. Big dark clouds sailed through the sky and did their best to hide the moon, and the wind sighed in the trees. Tommy and Annika turned around. But then, oh, the horrors! They saw a white figure walking towards them. "A ghost!" shrieked Tommy wildly. Annika was so scared that she couldn't even shriek. The ghost came nearer and nearer. Tommy and Annika hugged each other and shut their eyes. But that's when they heard the ghost say, "Look what I found! Papa's nightshirt in the old sea chest over there. If I hem it up around the bottom, I can wear it." Pippi came up to them in the nightshirt dancing around her legs. "Oh, Pippi, I could have died of fright," said Annika. "But nightshirts aren't dangerous," Pippi assured her. "They don't bite anybody except in self-defense." Pippi now decided to examine the sea chest thoroughly. She lifted it up and carried it over to the window and opened the corner. But that is what little moonlight there was fell in the contents of the chest. There were many old clothes, which she threw on the attic floor. There were a telescope, a few books, 3 pistols, a sword, and a bag of gold pieces. "It's so exciting," said Tommy. Pippi gathered everything in the nightshirt, and down they went to the kitchen again. Annika was perfectly satisfied to leave the attic. "Never let children handle firearms," said Pippi, and took the pistol in each hand and pretended to fire. "Otherwise some accident can easily happen," she said, shooting off both pistols at once. "That was a good bang," she announced, and looked at the ceiling. The bullets had made 2 holes. "Who knows," said Pippi hopefully. "Perhaps the bullets have gone right through the ceiling and hit some ghosts in the legs. That will teach them to think twice, to set foot and scare little innocent children again. Because even if there aren't any ghosts, they don't need to be going around scaring folks out of their wits, I should think. Would you each like a pistol?" she asked. Tommy was enchanted, and Annika also very much wanted a pistol. "Provided it wasn't loaded. Now we can organize a robber band if we want to," said Pippi. She held the telescope up to her eyes. "With this I can almost see the fleas in South America, I think," she continued. "And it'll be good to have if we do organize a robber band." Just then there was a knock at the door. It was Tommy and Annika's father, who had come to take them home. It was long past their bedtime, he said. Tommy and Annika hurried to say thank you, bid Pippi goodbye, and collect all the belongings, the flute, the brooch, and the pistols. Pippi followed her guests out on the porch and watched them disappear through the garden. They turned around to wave. The light from inside shone on her. There she stood, with her stiffened braids, dressed in her father's nightshirt, with billowed around her feet, and in one hand she held a pistol and in the other hand a sword. She saluted with it. When Pippi and Annika and their father reached the gate, they heard her calling. They stopped to listen. The wind whistled through the trees so that they could barely hear what she had to say. "I'm going to be a pirate when I grow up," she cried. "Are you?" The end, guys. Thank you for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed. You guys probably saw me get tongue-tied quite a bit, but that's just Miss Eddington. I get a little nervous when I read aloud. But I'm so proud of you guys, and I hope you enjoyed all the videos.